Imagine someone banging on your door, yelling to the police, and that you're under arrest. Scary, right? But what if I told you those officers were fake, and they didn't realize the person they were trying to arrest was actually the chief of police? That's exactly what happened to me. And trust me, it did not end well for them. Stick around, because this story takes a turn you won't believe. Open up. This is the police. That's what I heard one quiet Saturday morning as I sipped my coffee. Now, normally, if someone says it at your front door, your heart would drop. But here's the thing, I am the chief of police. So, my first reaction wasn't fear, it was confusion. Why would my own officers be at my house without notice? I walked to the door, opened it, and there stood two men in black uniforms with shiny badges clipped to their belts. They had all the props, radios, handcuffs, even one of those cheap plastic-looking tasers. One of them barked, "Sir, you're under arrest for violating neighborhood codes. You need to come with us immediately." I almost laughed out loud. Neighborhood codes? Since when do police officers arrest people for not trimming their hedges or parking in the wrong spot? Something smelled off, and it wasn't just the aftershave one of them had drowned himself in. I studied them closely. Their uniforms looked legit at first glance, but they had no department patches, no name tags, and their badges were nothing like the ones issued in my precinct. Worse, their handcuffs looked like they came straight out of a Halloween costume shop. I decided to play along. I crossed my arms and asked, "Which department are you with?" The taller one cleared his throat and said, we're with the, City Enforcement Bureau." Now, let me tell you, no such thing exists. At that point, I was certain these guys were fakes. I also knew exactly who had sent them, my homeowners association. The HOA had been on my back for months. They hated that I parked my patrol car in my own driveway, claiming it lowered property values. They fined me for leaving my trash can out for an extra hour. And last week, I'd ignored their ridiculous demand to repaint my mailbox because the shade of black wasn't uniform with the community. Clearly, they were trying to intimidate me, but sending fake cops to arrest the actual chief of police? That was a whole new level of stupidity. I leaned against the doorframe and asked, "So what's the charge? Failing to mow my lawn? Or was it the scandalous crime of planting flowers without HOA permission?" The shorter one snapped back, "Don't get smart with us. We're authorized to bring you in." That's when I pulled out my wallet and flashed my real badge. Interesting, because I'm the chief of police. "So why don't you two tell me exactly what precinct you think you're with?" Their faces went pale. The taller guy stammered, well, you see, it's complicated." I cut him off. "Here's what's complicated. Impersonating an officer is a felony. And right now, you're standing on my property, pretending to arrest me. So either you come clean, or you're both going downtown in a real police car." The two looked at each other nervously. Then, like a couple of kids caught stealing candy, they cracked. "It wasn't our idea," one of them blurted out. "The HOA president paid us. He said if we didn't scare you, he'd fine us too." Bingo! I had my confirmation. Now, I could have just arrested those two on the spot, but I wanted to see how deep this rabbit hole went. So I told them, "Fine, take me to your boss." Reluctantly, they led me down the street to the HOA president's house. And wouldn't you know it, the guy was sitting on his porch, sipping lemonade, like he'd just masterminded the greatest plan in history. When he saw me walking up with his two hired officers, his smirk quickly disappeared. I said, "Sending fake cops to arrest someone is a bold move, but sending them to arrest the chief of police? That's just plain stupid." The president stuttered, I didn't know you were the chief. I thought you were just exaggerating." I almost laughed. Everyone in the neighborhood knew my job. I literally drove my squad car home every day. He had no excuse. So I laid out for him. "You've crossed the line from being a nosy HOA president to committing crimes. Impersonating law enforcement, harassment, conspiracy. You're looking at real charges." His face went ghost white. The lemonade glass shook in his hand. "Please, let's just handle this privately," he begged. But this wasn't staying private anymore. I called in my actual officers, and within 20 minutes, real squad cars rolled up. The fake cops were placed in real handcuffs this time, and the HOA president was read his rights. Neighbors peeked out from behind curtains and from their driveways, whispering and gasping as their almighty HOA president was taken away in the back of a cruiser. In the end, the two hired impostors cut a deal. They testified against the HOA president, explaining how he had orchestrated the whole scheme. The president himself was charged with conspiracy, harassment, and attempting to intimidate a public official. And as for me, well, let's just say the HOA doesn't bother me anymore. My patrol car still sits proudly in my driveway. My trash can sometimes stays out an extra day, and nobody dares say a word. The neighborhood is quieter now, and people even stop me and say, "Hey, thanks for standing up to him. He was out of control." And that's how the HOA's little plan backfired in the biggest way possible. Fake cops in handcuffs, the president arrested, and peace finally restored to the neighborhood. The lesson? Never mess with the law, especially when the law lives right next door. If you enjoyed this story, make sure to hit that like button, subscribe for more unbelievable stories, and drop a comment below telling me what you would have done if fake officers showed up at your door. Trust me, the next story I share is even crazier, and you won't want to miss it.